May the spirit of imagination open our minds to new possibilities. May the spirit of love open our hearts and join our hands. May the spirit of justice move us to act for the liberation of all. And may the spirit of community challenge us to open our circle wider and wider still. Welcome to video worship at the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos for September 5th, 2021. I'm Ann Marsh, Worship Associate. Our minister, the Reverend John Cullinan, is on sabbatical, and during his absence, we're hearing from a wonderful variety of speakers. I'm delighted to introduce today's pulpit guest, the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Redfern-Campbell. Sue retired from active ministry in 2018, having served Unitarian Universalist congregations since 1985. Most recently, she was Developmental Minister in Las Cruces for 5 years, and this past year, she served a 2-month sabbatical ministry for the UUs in Fairbanks, Alaska. Sue grew up Methodist, but became a UU in her 20s when she moved to Boston and discovered the historic Arlington Street Church. After a career change from law, she served congregations in 6 states and 1 Canadian province. She found assisting congregations in transition to be especially meaningful, and Sue is an accredited interim minister. She came to New Mexico after marrying her late husband, Chuck Campbell, on New Year's Day in 2012, and Sue now lives in Albuquerque with a hyperactive rescue cat named Phoenix. On this Labor Day weekend, Sue invites us to look at the struggles of workers and all of us to make real our dreams of justice and equality. Welcome, Sue, and welcome to all of you.
Good morning, everyone. Our words for chalice lighting come from the Reverend Megan Visser. We enter this sanctuary, a virtual one, for kindness and comfort. May rough-worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter this virtual sanctuary of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter this virtual sanctuary of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter this virtual sanctuary of courage and friendship. May we proceed hand in hand towards freedom.
Each week, the words of our affirmation remind us of why we come together and of the promises we make to each other and to our wider world. In that awareness, I invite you to speak the words mindfully as we join in our affirmation.
Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all.
A virtual candle burns this week for those suffering in the wake of Hurricane Ida. May we hold them in our hearts and share what resources we can. Though it's a much smaller thing, I also thought of lighting a candle this week for the neon bright yellow aspen leaf I saw the other day. But is that leaf a joy or sorrow? Perhaps some of each. It's beautiful, and it's also a bittersweet reminder of summer's end. Our lives are interwoven with joys and sorrows, hopes and fears, endings and beginnings. Every day is some of each. In a time of shared silence, may we bring to our minds and hearts whatever mixture of feelings we carry with us this day. As we set sail into uncertainty, may we stay open to the possibilities that will unfold. May we share our light and draw strength from each other. And may we trust the spirit of life and love that surrounds and upholds us always.
We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair or in temptation and need to be called to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
We will take one more step till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song till every song
Our Time for All Ages is a music video called Be a Pain, and it's about people who stood up for equality and justice. Others didn't agree with them, and they thought they were, as the song says, being a pain. But they kept fighting for what was right, and they made our world a better place. Since this is Labor Day weekend, we want to preface this video by featuring a woman who spearheaded many of the labor reforms and workers' benefits we take for granted today. Her name was Frances Perkins, and she was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Secretary of Labor, the first woman cabinet member, and one of the chief architects of what's called the New Deal. Frances Perkins is the person most responsible for Social Security, a 40-hour work week, a minimum wage, unemployment and disability insurance, workmen's compensation, the abolition of child labor, workplace safety rules, a revitalized civil service system, public works employment programs, and more. As a woman in the 1930s and 40s, Perkins was belittled by some of her male colleagues who wanted her to sit down and shut up. They definitely thought she was a pain. But despite the sexism she faced, she never gave up. And in the end, she accomplished more for workers than just about anybody in our history. So be like Frances Perkins. Be a pain for equality and justice.
If you see something that's wrong, raise your hand and say that's wrong. Point it out and name that thing by its name. Don't stand by and stare. If it's wrong, it's your affair. Don't be quiet, make a riot. Be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. When Rosa Parks sat on that bus, she chose to make a fuss. She chose to break the rules and take the blame. Her choice to sit and fight helped to bring on civil rights, because one strong woman chose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they say you have to move, say I'll remain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Harvey Milk, he chose to run for the council board and won, even though folks said you can't because you're gay. One brave LGBTQ elected leader ran and knew you can change things if you choose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. Tell them I won't let you make me feel ashamed. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Tennis star named Billie Jean told the world she had a dream that men and women would be paid the same. She refused to hit that ball till there was equal pay for all. She was a king because she was a royal pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they refuse to pay, refuse to play the game. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain.
Kids from Parkland led the fight for something they all knew was right. They said it's time for us to finally make a change. If adults can't compromise, we must go march for our lives. They spoke out and led the charge. They all were pains. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. When you're faced with laws you know are just insane. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Oh, be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain.
On this Labor Day weekend, I'd like to give a brief introduction to our next hymn, number 157, Step by Step. Our hymnal says that the words come from the preamble to the 1890 Constitution of the United Mine Workers of America, but that's not correct. It is indeed a coal miner's poem, but it predates the UMW by almost 30 years. The poem comes from the preface to the 1861 Constitution of the American Miners Association, the first national union of miners in the U.S. A labor union with a poem in its constitution. How cool is that? The poem was written by Daniel Weaver, an emigrant miner from England and one of the founders of the American Miners Association. British miners were accustomed to better working conditions and wages than American miners, and for Weaver and the other union men, the key factor in achieving reforms was unity. Alone, we accomplish little. Together, much is possible. As the poem says, and by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn the mill. Singly, none. Singly, none. The American Miners Association was short-lived. It ended in 1869, torn by internal disputes and strikes that had not gone well. But it was a precursor to other, more successful unions, and the poem lives on. It was set to an Irish tune many, many years ago, and has been sung by miners and labor activists, and by the rest of us who seek to change the world by acting together.
Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, singly none. And by union, what we will can be accomplished still.
The reading comes from a book by James Luther Adams on being human religiously. And this is part of Adams's 5 Smooth Stones of Liberalism. The community of justice and love is not an ethereal fellowship above the conflicts and turmoils of the world. It is one that takes shape in nature and history, one that requires the achievement of freedom with respect to material resources as well as with respect to spiritual resources. Indeed, one kind of freedom is not fully authentic without the other. Freedom, justice, and love require a body as well as a spirit. We do not live by spirit alone. Now, anything that exists effectively in history must have form, and the creation of a form requires power. It requires not only the power of thought, but also the power of organization and the organization of power. Liberal religion denies the immaculate conception of virtue and insists on social incarnation. No one can properly put faith in merely individual virtue, even though that is a prerequisite for societal virtues. The faith of the liberal must express itself in societal forms. Without these, freedom and justice in community are impossible.
Tumble out of bed and I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch, try to come to life. Jumping in the shower and the blood starts pumping. On the streets the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taken and no giving. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5 for service and devotion. You would think that I would deserve a fair promotion. Want to move ahead, but the boss won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes that man is out to get me. They let you dream just to watch you shatter. You're just a step on the boss man's ladder, but you've got dreams he'll never take away. In the same boat with a lot of your friends, waiting for the day your ship will come in and the tide's gonna turn and it's gonna go your way. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taken and no giving. They just lose your mind and you never get the credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, yeah, they got you where they want you. There's a better life. You just think about it, don't you? It's a rich man's game, no matter what they call it. And you spend your life putting money in his wallet.
On September 8, 1965, in Delano, California, 800 Filipino workers struck 10 growers of table grapes. They were members of the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee, a branch of the AFL-CIO. The workers demanded increased wages, a 15-cent increase in the hourly rate up to $1.40 an hour, and an increase in the piece rate from 10 cents to 25 per box. 8 days later, The National Farm Workers Association, mostly Mexican Americans, joined the Filipinos, and eventually the two groups merged to form the United Farm Workers, whose grape strike and boycott became legendary. The farm workers' strike captured the world's imagination in the late 60s, early 70s. As people learned of the terrible working conditions in the fields, they found ways to support the struggle. One of these took place in individual households. For years, my husband and I didn't eat grapes at all, nor did any of our friends. The struggle gave us two American heroes, both Mexican Americans from the Southwest. Cesar Chavez was born in Yuma, Arizona. His family had owned a small parcel of land there, but they'd lost it. They'd been cheated out of it during the Great Depression. This dispossession forced them to move to California and become migrant workers. Dolores Huerta, now 91, is a native New Mexican. She was born in Dawson, in the northeast corner of the state. Her parents were both active in the community. Her mother was a small businesswoman and agitator, while her father was a coal miner, field worker, union activist, and state legislator. The 1965 grape strike marked a new chapter in what had been a long-established tradition of Chicano organizing. As we celebrate Labor Day here in the Southwest, it's good to recall some of the efforts from this part of the country, especially since Hispanic Heritage Month starts in a little over a week. A notable New Mexico example is the 1950 Empire Zinc mining strike, which took place outside Silver City. The film Salt of the Earth memorializes it, and if you haven't seen that film, I highly recommend it. Among other things, it is the only film ever banned in the United States. A Beacon Press book tells the story of how this happened. It took place during the blacklisting era of the 1950s. You won't be surprised to hear that. In California, many people had attempted over many years to organize farm workers, but the United Farm Workers' struggle was the first truly successful one. The UFW's success held for about 15 years, and farm workers began to earn respect and a decent living. Now, sadly, things started to fall apart after 15 years, but I don't think that negates the historic achievement of Chavez and Huerta and their colleagues. Their early success still holds lessons for the rest of us. Marshall Gans writes about these lessons in his book, Why David Sometimes Wins, referring to the biblical story of David and Goliath. Gans spent 16 years with the farm workers as a community and labor organizer, and now he teaches at the Kennedy School of Government in Massachusetts. Gans describes several different factors behind the UFW's success. One is that Cesar Chavez was able to achieve two things that might seem self-contradictory at first. First, he was able to ground the farm worker movement in Mexican-American religious and cultural traditions, but at the same time, he could embrace diversity, welcoming many ethnic groups into the struggle, many religious perspectives. So ethnically, union membership included not only Mexican Americans, but also the original Filipino strikers, and also immigrants from Yemen. The first UFW funeral, in fact, was a Muslim one for a Yemeni worker. Religiously as well, the UFW was diverse. Key players included the son of a rabbi, two Protestant ministers, a whole lot of U.S. Catholic bishops, and the agnostic colleague of Saul Alinsky, Fred Ross Sr., who became Chavez's mentor. And the movement's spiritual underpinnings were as inclusive as its membership. It embraced not only Catholic social teachings, but also Alinsky's approach to community organizing and Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent action. A second strength of the farm workers was that their movement was highly relational. That is, human connection was primary. Organizers used face-to-face meetings, both one-on-one and in groups, to help people get to know each other as whole people. They got people talking to one another by inviting them to start by sharing their stories. And then, when times got difficult, a deep heart connection was already there, and this was able to sustain the work. A third movement strength is what Gans called strategic capacity. An important part of strategic capacity is a culture of learning. Thus, when inevitable mistakes were made, or when tried and true tactics stopped working, the organization took the time to reflect on what had gone wrong and brainstormed new tactics. In other words, the union was nimble, creative, and adaptable. When workers didn't have the money for a traditional strike fund, they built a support network instead. When regular business meetings didn't draw much interest, they were turned into festive Friday night gatherings, solidarity celebrations, which combined theater, song, special guests, along with analyses of the week's events. Finally, the Farm Workers Union captured the public imagination because it had a powerful news story. Rather than cast the strike only in terms of a labor dispute, it offered a narrative of ethnic oppression and solidarity. And thus it drew in thousands of people who might not have been interested in the strike alone. Across the United States, the civil rights movement had prepared people to grasp other oppressions, including a long history of anti-Mexican, anti-Chicano oppression. And people did pick up on that story. As I've said, a deep Catholic spirituality lay at the heart of the farm worker movement. And of course, in this, it was like other great social movements driven by people of faith. It is hard to imagine the civil rights movement without the Black church, and it's hard to imagine the farm workers movement without Catholic spirituality. And as Unitarian Universalists, we've made our own contribution to social reform and social justice. Shining examples are the 19th century movements for universal public education and women's suffrage. And in our time, we can be proud of our leadership in the campaign for marriage equality. It's worth noting that the Unitarian and Universalist record is somewhat mixed regarding the rights of workers. Nevertheless, we do have some significant connections. And one of these comes through the source of this morning's reading, UU theologian James Luther Adams, sometimes known as Jim Adams or JLA. Jim Adams' long life spanned most of the 20th century, from 1901 to 1994. And he was a passionate teacher and a consummate extrovert, and he loved hosting students at his home. And as a result, 3 generations of ministry students, I among them, felt his influence, counting him as a mentor and a friend. And although his name sounds very New England and he lived in Cambridge for a long time, JLA wasn't a descendant of the presidential Adams family. An upper-class Bostonian once asked him what branch of the Adams family he came from, and his reply was, I come from the poor white trash branch. Jim Adams grew up about as far from Boston as you can get, in Ritzville, Washington, in a dry, dusty corner of that state. He was the son of an impoverished itinerant preacher, and as a young person, he distributed his father's fundamentalist tracts door to door. But then he got a job working for the Northern Pacific Railroad. This was one of many jobs he had. And on the railroad, he discovered the University of Minnesota, far from home, and he decided to enroll. This led him to Harvard Divinity School eventually, and then to the University of Chicago. And he became both a Unitarian minister and an academic. As a young minister, several powerful experiences shaped Jim Adams for the rest of his life. During his first ministry in Salem, Massachusetts, there was a labor strike at one of the textile mills. Members of his congregation included people on all sides of it. This was the town church, so mill workers, managers, and owners were all sitting in the pews. The local press was silent about the workers' reasons for striking, and so Adams took it upon himself to investigate. The 26-year-old minister's findings led to prophetic sermons and news articles, a call for a public airing of the workers' grievances, and these brought results. He went to Germany sometime later, and his experiences there during the rise of Hitler only reinforced his growing religious orientation. He'd gone to Germany on sabbatical and was horrified by what he saw. And what struck him especially was the complacency of the German liberal churches. This was in sharp contrast to the Christians he met in the anti-fascist underground. When he returned to the States, he resolved that he would transform liberal religion. He would move it away from vague platitudes and toward active engagement. And he spent the rest of his life exhorting people to resist evil and build the beloved community. This morning's reading comes from an essay in which he sets out 5 smooth stones of liberalism. On Labor Day weekend, the 4th smooth stone seems especially relevant. In Adams' words, freedom, justice, and love require a body as well as a spirit. We deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. In other words, love and justice don't exist solely within hearts and minds. They have no meaning unless we bring them down to earth, make them real in the world. Labor Day celebrates one form of what Jim Adams called the power of organization and the organization of power. It arose after the watershed Pullman Railroad strike of 1894, initiated by President Grover Cleveland as a conciliatory measure toward unions after the strike was crushed. It was intended, in other words, to honor not only labor and workers, but organized workers. And labor unions, as we know, are hardly perfect. They're no more perfect than churches are. But at their best, they're deeply incarnational. They embody love and justice and bring them down to earth. Much that we now take for granted would never have happened without labor unions. Workers had to organize for such basics as the minimum wage, the 8-hour workday, paid sick leave and vacation, workplace safety, and an end to child labor. So if you enjoy any of these things, thank the labor movement. On this Labor Day weekend, may we renew our commitment to seeking justice and love for all people, including ourselves. And may we keep in mind the good news: we don't have to do this alone. To meet the daunting challenges of our time, we can and must combine our strength with others. Many stones can make an arch. Many drops can turn a mill. Or in the words of Denise Levertov, we have only begun to know the power that is within us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So may it be.
Thank you, Sue, for those wonderful labor movement stories and for challenging us to live our values. Next week, our pulpit guest is minister and poet, the Reverend Linda Wittenberg, who was with us often during her years in Santa Fe. Linda's theme is boiling it down, finding the essence of what guides your life. Because of the changing COVID situation, our church board has decided to suspend in-person Sunday services and return to online-only video worship. Small groups may meet at the church in rooms they've reserved, and outdoor groups may continue. Children's programs are outdoors with masks, and everyone must wear a mask when in the building. The board will monitor COVID data carefully and will make decisions based on the diverse needs of our community. Thank you for your trust and patience as we navigate these tough times together. For now, join us for online worship at 10:30 on Sunday mornings, followed at 11:30 by our Zoom coffee hour. The Zoom link is in our email announcements. If this is your first time with us, we invite you to sign our virtual guest book, and everyone is reminded that you can submit personal joys and sorrows for our virtual candle lighting. The Reverend John Cullen will be on sabbatical until November 1st. Until that time, we invite you to send your questions, comments, and requests to the church office. The links for doing all these things are on our website and in the service notes under this video. For information on upcoming events and other ways to connect, please check our Facebook pages and email announcements. Thank you for being with us. Together, we strengthen our hope that hand in hand and heart to heart, we can make our vision of justice and compassion a reality. One step toward building the world we dream of is to share our resources with the wider community through our online offering. During the month of September, all offering funds will be given to Lutheran Family Services for their programs to assist refugees and asylees. Lutheran Family Services provides a wide range of resettlement programs, from school supplies and clothing to housing and employment assistance. Afghan refugees are now arriving, so the needs are even greater than ever. Please use the Givelify app on your mobile device or the link in the service notes below this video to make your contribution. Thank you for your generosity. May what you give bring you joy and a sense of connection to our wider world.
till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing, till the world can sing, till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing, till the world can sing, till the world can sing along.
We will not stop praying. We will not stop praying. We will not stop praying till we all can get along, till the world can sing our song. We will not stop shouting. We will not stop shouting. We will not stop shouting. Shouting right from wrong till the world can sing our song. Till the world can sing, till the world can sing, till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing, till the world can sing, till the world can sing along. We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing till the world can hear our song, till the world can sing along.
We'll give Dorothy Day the last word. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do. Go in peace, and may you be blessed with good work to do and much joy in doing it.